Most of the time it doesn't cause a huge deal, but you do have to kind of anticipate a little bit of jitters, at least for the first couple of minutes in the set.
And sometimes when you come to these land matches, you have a shift in these more land-style metas. We'll
some
see how
players
that
pop off.
Some players go crazy, some players not so hot. But we'll see how hot these two teams are in game number 1 with the picks and bans. Fenrir immediately pulled off the table, making sure to take a shot at a mixture of the jungle and the support. We've been seeing a lot of Fenrir support as of recent, but still has that flex potential, so the Titans will make sure to strip that one off the board. RDO taken away by the Solar Scarabs. I'm just going to be honest, Gore. I'm going to put it right out here up front. There is no reason that Paul should get Tiamat for what would now be an 8th game in a row if he grabs this. I pulled up the numbers. He went 20-6 in his last 7 games. 6 deaths. He's dying less than 1 time per game. And the Solar Scarabs do call that and make sure to ban that here for their 3rd ban.
And to double down on what you had just said, of those 7, one of those was a Tiamat loss because he lost in the finals one of those games. It was game 2 or 3 up against the Leviathan. So it didn't even include all the wins that he'd been able to pick up. And I think that is something, like you had said, something that you've had to focus on. And this is where things get a lot more difficult. The Titans have not only got a little bit more experience under their belt, but they just went through the Dragons, the Kings, and the Leviathans for their weekend, just now playing the Warriors. I mean, they have had a very rough going, at least in terms of competition, that they've had to step up to, and yet they've won every single one of these sets so far. But they've got a lot more of this like meta as it's shifted under their belts, whereas the Scarabs have just been able to scrim and kind of watch for the last few weeks.
I mean, the Titans were a team that came into the Phase 2 playoffs as the number 5 seed. And what did they do? They toppled the Dragons in the first set, game that probably not a whole lot of people expected. And then what did they do? They 3-1 the Kings, the number 1 seed. And then immediately after, they beat the Leviathans, all 3-1s across the board. This team is on fire right now, and the Solar Scarabs are going to have to try and find their way to slow down that momentum for the Titans. And with these first 3 picks, the Solar Scarabs are looking to do so. Cerberus, Artemis, and Umoja to line out the first 3 of theirs. Kamazatzen and Osiris, and on the other side of it, Tartarus Titans. They banned away the Giannis. I heard you get a little bit of excitement towards that Giannis ban.
Yeah, this is something I had recently been looking through it, but a lot of the bans, like when you go through and you look at like top bans versus this team, most of the time it ends up being Tiamat. Not very surprising, right? Hey, yeah, she's really good. You kind of ban her.
You could have fooled me.
But there were a couple of teams, specifically 2, that had Giannis as their top ban against them, and it's because their mid laners are insane with them. Whirlwind obviously should be one of those that it makes sense, and they've banned, that's the most banned god against the Dragons. But the other team is the Scarabs, and I was wondering, especially when they took the shot at Morgan Le Fay, it's like Baronic, he's got some good mid laners under his belt, but Giannis is definitely the one that jumps to the forefront of my mind. So I like the fact that they've banned that, and they're trying to control it, because he seems to be one of the more easier portions to control. If you can limit his impact, it helps deal with the rest of the Scarabs, because when he is on one of these gods that he has this kind of performance on, it's done. You've got a good jungler behind him, their 3v3 in mid jumps up immediately.
I mean, when you're talking about Giannis, you're talking about one of the slipperiest gods in the game to deal with. The fact that there is a god in this game that can just ignore a wall, he can just walk right through it. It makes it so difficult to lock him down. So by taking that pick away, you remove a huge safety factor for Baronic, and one of the kind of most annoying things to deal with as a mid laner. You know, not many mid laners have huge leaps, have huge ways of getting themselves out of danger, and the fact that Giannis can just walk through a wall, and now what does the enemy team do? You want to chase through that? I don't think you probably want to chase through that wall. So taking that one away is going to put Baronic a little bit out of position. And Scylla, we saw 2 Scylla games from the Bolts, both of those wins. How do you feel about the Scylla here for the Scarabs lineup?
I mean, I like her, right? She's got CC immunity. She does the damage. She can do it pretty early on as well.
The ability to take down these top teams.
They have. They were the Dragon Slayers for a little while there, but there's a new king in town, right? And it's not from Camelot. It's the Tartarus Titans, our current Phase 3, or Phase 2 rather, playoff champions. And I don't know, man. These guys have been looking dominant. You said Game 1, Game 2, maybe Game 3. I'm thinking we might be looking at a tour here, but
yeah, it's the Solar Scarabs who need to step up, because the Tartarus Titans around layers, the new jungler towards the back half of Phase 2 and through the Phase 2 playoffs, this Titans team has really found a surge that has worked for them. And an interesting jungle pick, Myth, for layers in game number 1. It's been, a lot of Gilgamesh and Erlang Shen, Admittedly, Ratatoskr doesn't come to mind, but Layers likes to pick here for game 1.
He did play it once during the playoffs, so I do think it's something that he's really comfortable on and brings good global presence, or maybe even first blood potential as Layers puts down Scream.
He's got to go down. Veronica is able to dash forward and actually put some damage into Paul. We see these 2v2s in mid at level 2, and sometimes, there's a lot of poke one way or another. I guess that's the most likely place for an early first blood. I'm sure we'll get a look back at it. And the beneficiary, of course, Layers, who grabs first blood. But getting this Scylla some pressure early in the game is always going to be
Bounty,
nice.
Scream, still level 2, going to be falling behind pretty significantly as he doesn't get any of that mid-wave experience at all. That you don't want to Gilgamesh behind at whatsoever.
Layers is here now. He'll blink forward, get the beads out of Stewart, so kill pressure a little bit lower, but Layers just keeps walking forward, and he's got the body blocks on Stewart as well. Scream rotates to left, but Layers will walk out of this one. Drop kick onto Aurora, but not onto Layers. The stun, no good from inbound either. Layers gets away with murder, and out goes the Ratatoskr.
So that's why he plays Rat. That's it right there. I mean, that early game pressure is ridiculous. 2 kills in as many minutes for Layers, just walking down the opposition and stripping away those beads from both Stewart and inbound means that Aurora and Cyclone Spin all of a sudden have a huge jump in their kill pressure, but this could be one way back in. Scream trying to steal red.
My man walked in and walked out. I mean, that was about as simple as it could be for Layers. There will be red buff invade successful there for Layers as well. But Scream definitely in a position to fight on into this one. Inbound on the Emoja. It's going to get rooted in place here, abducted out by Aurora. Beads used by inbound. Scream into the back line, but Paul will send out the Taiko drums. Watch out for Layers. Layers has got inbound, but inbound walks out of the River's Rebuke. There's a Scarab's Blessing on the Layers as well, and Cyclone Spin with the snipes, making a clean dive in the mid lane.
Inbound, that's the same mistakes he's been making on this Emoja for years now. Just a little bit over-aggressive inside of the positioning, walks up alone, immediately loses out on his beads and the majority of his HP bar. And when you're low HP and there's a Ratatoskr on the map, he's going to be able to chase you down pretty easily.
Secure or steal ultimates in the game. And so, if the Tartarus Titans have this lead, they're playing around these Furies. I mean, you don't want to have to think about a steal as your way back in the game. But it is a way back in for the Solar Scarabs for sure. Paul jumped on, will Thunder crash away, use the beads and the Taiko drums. Inbound still walking forward, the Riptide sends Raijin back towards mid. Watch out, Cyclone Spin has taken a whole lot of damage. Sends snipes Baronic's way. There's a Scarab's Blessing on Cyclone, who's in the middle of the River's Rebuke. It'll crash in and it will time out. Solo or Troll is low, but Layers has got the gap closed, and the Solar Scarabs nearly get Cyclone Spin. They nearly get Layers. But they end up losing SOT at the end of the day.
That's tough, man. The Scarabs play that incredibly well, trying to pick their aggression there. SOT's rotation out forces the ult defensively from Paul, but the follow-up damage just wasn't there. Inbound does find the pool, post Taiko drums on a Paul, but no DPS to follow up. Cyclone Spin survives the River's Rebuke, and just at the end of the day, the Solar Scarabs just missing out on maybe 200 additional damage. Could have completely shifted up that fight, but instead it's the Titans walking out clean.
And even though the Scarab's Blessing didn't proc on Cyclone Spin, didn't get the res, you could see that moment of hesitation that it brings in, and the Titans were able to re-engage after that.
No, yeah, Baronic holds on to the ultimate, does connect the crush, and that is the majority of the damage output from the Scarabs there. But just being able to force that Scarab's Blessing would have been huge. If they could have taken that away from Aurora, this Gold Fury would have been a lot easier. Just hesitation to commit.
Benji's around the back. Scream is separating Paul and Benji as well. Could be a favorable fight here for the Tartarus Titans if Benji is able to disrupt this backline a little bit. SOT has to jump away. Inbound left alone. Scarab's Blessing on in. Layers has found the back of the Solar Scarabs, and as we expect, Cyclone Spin's hitting the snipes, and that's gotten the kill onto inbound. Baronic gets no one with the I'm a Monster, but Benji is still separating out this fight. He's taking a lot of damage. He'll have to dash away. We haven't seen much from Scream yet in this fight. With low health bars, there's a chance for him to jump in.
What a calculated engage, man. Did you see that? Layers goes in with a 3-man dunk in the back line just as the rest of the Titans completely commit onto inbound, just creates so much space, and then immediately disengages. Tells me that that was exactly the plan. Layers says, I'm going to dunk, I'm going to back out, I'm going to get safe, kill whoever you can in the front line, and it works out perfectly for the Titans. And the Titans afterward don't stick around, they don't take the risky play. They'd already had a very expensive engagement, costing every single ultimate, barring that Scarab's Blessing, so crush and the entirety of Raijin's kit dropped on that one. But at the end of the day, it will go the way of the Titans, and the Solar Scarabs give up a little bit of space, and the Titans pull it.
As you expect, Benji is around the backside.
Good ult.
River's Rebuke from inbound keeps the backline out of this fight. Aurora's got the Scarab's blessing onto himself. Cyclone spin, dunks back down, and it's a big engage from SOT over on the Oracles. Baronic has got some big damage in here as well, and SOT going massive in this fight. The Titans had a lead, but lead no longer. Paul has to thunder crash away, and the Scarabs come up big.
Paul, no relics available. SOT gonna keep this chase up, finds the kill, triple kill for SOT. And Dave, that's exactly the concern that the Titans had. They knew if they slipped up around this Gold Fury, their lead would be moot. Solar Scarabs now dead even, and it's all off the back of a phenomenal ultimate from Inbound, completely separating that engagement and artificially manufacturing two separate fights. SOT diving on his own into the backline of the Titans, and the rest of the front line stuck with the Solar Scarabs on their side of the jungle. We were talking about that scaling potential. Stewart now starting to show it. That damage output from him, I'd say he probably doubled his damage in that fight.
It was a good chain of CC for the Solar Scarabs. Great setup from Inbound, and then SOT with a Stygian Torment locked both of the carries in play. Cyclone Spin dropped right back down. Gold Fury is up here. I'm a monster and Crush. That's enough to confirm, and the Solar Scarabs officially take the lead in the gold department. And what a set of breaks that have been thrown on Tartarus Titans train. It was layers, it was early, and it was often. But then big plays like this will give you the lead back.
Man, that ultimate just doing so much work from Inbound there, but then SOT set up perfectly, finds the double ult, strips the beads from Cyclone Spin, and from there it is non-stop aggression. He locked eyes with Paul like a Pokemon trainer around the corner and just walks them down, both relics stripped from mid laner as well as his life. Just crazy plays.
Yeah, late beads in that fight, but Paul maybe sensing the stun was a little bit quicker. Doesn't matter. Paul is going to die anyway, beads used there or not, so Paul without his relics for another minute. SOT off the back of a triple kill, and then Gold Fury for the Solar Scarabs have brought this game right back in their favor. Scream feeling confident, and why wouldn't you? You can out DPS this Raijin, but it's a dunk in from layers into the mid lane. Has Scream overextended? The answer is yes, but he won't necessarily pay for it.
I can't believe Paul dug in his heels and said, yeah, I'm fighting this inside the Winds of Shamash while you've got the Sun Scimitar just ticking through, and he kind of survives barely.
Aurora pulled right back in, and it's SOT with the Stygian Torment. Then a great Riptide from Inbound puts Aurora right back into the range of threat. Another Riptide again behind Aurora. You got to turn around and look at him every once in a while. And suddenly Inbound, Myth, I mentioned earlier in the game, if he starts to find his footing, things could feel interesting for the Solar Scarabs, and now both of the frontliners, the engage for the Solar Scarabs has been hitting.
Benji's a little far forward here, but Sobek's hard to go on, so instead nobody's going to really look his way, and he doesn't really have anyone to follow up, so doesn't look for the pluck aggressively. Solar Scarabs, though, now for the first time this game, find themselves just about 1,000 gold in the lead, and Paul got to leap out. That was close, man. If that dropkick lands from Scream, Paul's life is forfeit.
You can tell, I mean, Scream's still a couple levels down, still playing with some wind in his sails. This Gilgamesh needs to be there for the engage. You can't afford to not be impactful in this game, and Scream still finding a way to do so. But there is still that level lead for layers, so that is something that can play into the rest of this game as well. Pyromancer goes to the Tartarus Titans. More of that cooldown, though.
Yeah, Paul's got much better poke potential, but if Baronic starts a fight, he's looking to finish it.
We've seen this before. Scream jumps onto Paul. Paul has to Thunder Crash away. Beads used as well, but we've also seen this before. Layers re-engages. Spin to win, baby. Scream goes down, and this time the overextension is paid for with his life. 3 levels back in the jungle, 3 levels in the lead, I should say, for layers. What can you do with this advantage is what the Titans are wanting.
And whoever he lands on is getting exploded inside of this one. If he stays out of combat for at least 5 seconds, the first time he deals damage, it's going to deal a lot of damage inside of these fights. And when you've got a global like Ratatasker, I mean, you're applying that easily.
Benji, big block on Inbound, and then immediately into the abduct. It's beautiful from the Tartarus Titans, but they have not been able to get the kill. A re-engage from the back. How about the snipes from Cyclone Spin?
One more.
Yes, please, on 2. But no good on number 3. Stewart's low. There's a Scarab's blessing onto layers who will immediately get pulled on back. No more ultimates for either team. Cyclone Spin has got no HP, and Scream will call him on it, but Layers answers the bluff. Layers gets 1. Scream adds another. And Cyclone Spin down, but where's SOT? He's getting the kill onto Layers.
Paul, very low HP. SOT could chase him out. Shades of earlier here. Aurora, no Scarab's blessing available. Thunderclaps down, and SOT still on the chase. Luckily, though, Benji there to keep you alive.
Wow, it is a graveyard of relics.
They're going to fire.
Now in this game, you're right, Miff. Good eyes. The Solar Scarabs, they're regrouping. And they're sending it immediately to Fire Giant. No Scream for the Scarabs, but no Cyclone Spin and layers for the Titans. It's that dunk in from the Ratatosker that you're maybe most worried about, and the steal potential of the snipes from Cyclone Spin, and neither of the two are on the map right now. Stuart and Baronic will be able to do some good damage to this FG. Aurora looks for the root and place, but he's the one locked right in. Baronic gets the kill onto the Titan support. And now if you're wanting FG, it's maybe a little bit easier.
Benji forced to use his beads there. Aurora dead for 30. Layers still dead for 10. Solar Scarabs have a large power play to play with here. Paul, you didn't win this 1v1 earlier, but I think you might this time.
Tycho drums go out, and if nothing else, the Fire Giant feels delayed. Thunder Crash.
Wow.
Canceled for a moment there by the Riptide, but he's able to get out. That would have been an interaction I've never seen before if Paul ended up dying to that. And the Tycho drums Myth enough to get the Solar Scarabs to settle for the Pyromancer unless Benji steals it. He will not. The stun is there. And the Solar Scarabs can take a deep breath, but the Titans can as well.
Benji seeing if maybe he can find a pick here. If he finds the pluck on
There's
the
a tug of
inbound, the
war.
follow-up
They know he's there.
would be there, but he's getting turned
Oh,
on.
it's a big tail whip, and Baronic sent right back into the mid lane, but none of the Tartarus Titans are in range to capitalize. Another great Riptide.
Ooh, close.
On the Cyclone Spin. Stewart is able to get the kill, even though the River's Rebuke wasn't quite
Nice
there.
dunk.
Kick from Layers. That one's on to 2, but look at the crush from Baronic. Puts him down. Goodbye, Layers, and the Solar Scarabs playing well in the mid lane.
SOT doesn't connect the Stygian Torment this time, but I'm not going to hold it against him. The Solar Scarabs coming up in a big way. 25 minutes of this one, but they're low, and Benji's back in.
My goodness, Benji pluck into Abduct, and this time it's the Tartarus Titans mid laner getting the kill. And it's a shutdown onto Baronic.
They
so
want
some
more.
Good gold goes its way towards Paul in the mid lane. This Raijin feeling good now. Jump in from Scream. Tycho drums back up. And
Wow!
He's got a double. Paul's got a triple. Looking for the quad around the corner. Give it to him. Thunder Crash in. No root. On to Scream. Scream will jump on away. The patience of the Tartarus Titans to re-engage have sent this game right back.
That is why Paul is in the conversation for the best to have ever done it. From the brink, is able to turn that team fight on its head. Tartarus Titans are not just champions by name, they prove it on the battlegrounds here. Solar Scarabs, they're looking good, but they have to look better than that to put them down. Tartarus Titans now, they've got the exact same power play the Scarabs did. 25 seconds on SOT, 10 on Baronic, 25 on Stewart. I think Fire Giant's going the way of the Order team.
Man, the ability to re-engage, the desire really to re-engage there from the Titans just would not let the Solar Scarabs go back. And now it's Fire Giant started up by only a couple members of the Tartarus Titans. Make it 3. Cyclone Spin, Aurora, and Layers will do plenty of damage here. Nobody from the Scarabs is going to get in range. And let's take a look back at the playmaker himself. That combo has been there all game long. Pluck into Abduct. And who better to be on the other end of it than Paul?
But watch this. When he leaps in aggressively here, Benji gets stunned, so the pluck can't happen. Paul says, okay, I'll do it myself. Comes in with a Tycho and finds the collat with it. That's just clean mechanics.
Yeah, Stewart takes so much from a couple of those. Those barrels as well. Look, if I'm in that ultimate, I'm throwing those things at will, hoping that it hits somebody. Paul is placing those that it hits both of his targets there towards the end. Big play from the Raijin. That's that Soul Reaver Obshard combo, that power spike we had mentioned.
Gold as close as it is, with everyone already approaching level 20, parity in XP between the two players that have not hit 20, Inbound and Aurora, both at 17. I mean, the Scarabs are still in this.
Oh, Scream gets plucked back, and there's a Thunder Crash immediately in, and look at the engage.
Layers.
Look at the swiftness from the Titans. They've got Scream forced out of this fight. He's over in the mid lane. Benji kills off Stewart alone in the back. Massive play from the Sobek in the solo lane, and now the Titans have themselves about a minute advantage. Scarabs with no Hunter.
Benji still on the back line, should be able to find one. Forces the beads off of SOT.
Oh, but the re-engage is there, and it's Layers leading the charge. Nice Stygian Torment brings him right back into the Riptide. It's what SOT needed to do, and it works out perfectly. Scarabs blessing onto Cyclone Spin. Might have been meant for Layers, but Layers gets out anyway. And woo-wee, we can take a breath. All the towers down in the mid lane. Phoenix open and mid and left.
The Solar Scarabs play so well up until this point, then get separated inside of the engagement. There's no reason Stewart should be left alone inside of these fights. There's no world where Benji should be allowed to stand behind the tier 2 tower on his own.
Tartarus Titans, they want more. They might want the game here. There's still 15 seconds without Stewart. Pluck, Abduct, it's all good again, and it's all on to Inbound. You need Baronic to go big here. He's your big damage, and he's done, so I'm the monster. on the perfect target, and Cyclone Spin takes a nap. Layers immediately answers back, though. The Ratatosker able to get the last bit of damage in. SOT has to jump away from this fight, but Scream alone in the back. Paul sends the Tycho drums his way, but Scream is taking too much damage. Layers on the double.
Calculated decision there from Scream. He knows when he jumps in, he dies. He's just trying to apply as much damage as possible. If he could drop Paul low, that removes the threat of this Phoenix going down, and he does so masterfully. 3 members of the Scarabs still alive. Cyclone Spin trades out his life, and the Tartarus Titans, well, they just got to fall back to the tier 2. Maybe the Pyro, then base.
Regain control, and suddenly the reinitiation is there. Had a power pot, pops the power pot. Sensing maybe an impending fight here, but the Solar Scarabs playing this one smart, playing a little safe.
Yeah, Layers just popping that elixir of power is going to deal insane damage to whoever he lands on. If he finds Stewart alone or slacking, Baronic,
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's one-shot potential and potentially survivability as well.
SOT pulled into the back. Tycho drums early in this fight from Paul. It's inbound, staggered back a little bit. Pluck is beadsed out by inbound. Still locked in place, but you avoid the toss back. So Tycho Drumsmith, admittedly a pretty big ultimate to have down going into this potential fight if the Scarabs step up.
And it's an enhanced Fire Giant. The Scarabs have to step up. They need this to go their way.
Scream jumps over the wall. Benji gets the pluck, but no one in range. That's I'm a monster
Layers.
used very early on. Where does Layers go? There's a whole grouping of backliners. You got to do it. That's
way.
what I'm saying. My mental's telling me to go in, and he will go in, but he does not hit the dunk. SOT is able to avoid it. Benji knocked in place. Layers finds the backline. He finds Baronic.
Wow!
It's absolutely decimated, and it's Layers who deals the killing blow. But can Layers get out alive?
What?
Blessing massive from Aurora, who then dashes away to get his jungler out safe. It's a kill and then out for the Tartarus Titans. The Solar Scarabs not giving this one up, though. Layers still low on left.
SOT has isolated himself.
He's
He's trying to buy time for his
Well,
team, but
Scream!
Scream's in, and he
Scream!
finds Layers!
Scream gets the kill on the Layers, and Scream gets out as well. The Solar Scarabs will not go down. SOT sustaining up over here on the right. He's going to waste some time. But the Tartarus Titans realize that it's maybe the last kill we're going to be able to get in this fight. The Fire Giant has been delayed, and the Solar Scarabs have done you one better. Both of these junglers diving their targets and doing it well. Aurora needs some love there, though. That fight maybe looks worse if Layers dies without that Scarab's blessing.
That Scarab's blessing was microseconds, right? I mean, I didn't even get to see the animation drop onto Layers' head before he was already teleporting over towards his support.
Are they doing it?
Solar Scarabs.
They reset.
This
They
is
reset.
an inbound call, 100%. This is exactly what they
Whoa.
love to do, and it's burning fast.
They're so slow. The Tartarus Titans are so slow. There's Paul around the backside from the mid lane. Fire Giant down to half HP. He does not have Tycho drums yet. Sends the Raiju on a Fire Giant. Taken down by the Tartarus Titans. Looks like Paul maybe steals it away. Paul gets the dough. At least the Scarabs make the call, and it's not working out. A sickening strike from Benji in the solo lane to secure the FG.
Paul demands perfection from his opponents, and the Solar Scarabs did not have it this time. Benji might be able to find the pluck. Raiju's good, but a Riptide separates this one. Able to squeeze by, though. Tartarus Titans, they're primed and ready. They want to win.
Oh, yeah. Stewart's dead for 30.
Do they have him?
Is dead for 40. Inbound.
Oh.
Get out. Baronic can spread out some AoE damage here in this fight. He does not buy him a monster, but he does have frontliners to buy him a little bit more space. Benji gets the pluck onto Cerberus. Cyclone Spin is here. He's going to deal some big damage to this Titan. He's going to deal big damage to SOT. The Scarabs, they've stayed alive in this game.
Burning.
But the clock seems to be striking midnight. The Titan going down way too quickly, and the Titans stay alive. They'll do you one better. They'll win game 1.
And then I'm gonna put some respect on his name. Solar Troll came in huge
Massive.
to help turn things around for their team. And if it hadn't been for him, I think this early game starts to really skyrocket for the Titans. But he gets a lot of kills and helps kind of even things out for them. And then from that point forward, it's him. And then a little bit later, you get a lot of good from Baronic. You get some really great plays from Scream. I think the Scarabs really stepped up, but that's glancing over what was otherwise phenomenal performances from Layers. Paul had some nights out, oh man, was this man playing some Raijin, as well as the saves coming in from Aurora. A couple of them felt like last-second saves for them. It's just so many little moments this game where it really felt like that core 3v3. And, of course, the FG steal was such a big deal. Not only being able to pick that up, Benji credit for the FG steal, but that the kills afterward are massive for the win.
I mean, the fact that he didn't even throw the damage towards it entirely. He threw out Raiju onto somebody else, Percussive Storm, it bounced over, and then Benji's able to get the steal. huge turnaround play at the very end for the Titans because the Scarabs had a really good fight right before.
Yeah.
And when that fight happens, I'm like, all right, we're looking to go another probably 10 minutes in this game, or maybe now the Scarabs can start pushing down the Titans map and see where the priority is set. It will be Tartarus Titans taking first pick in Game 2, Solar Scarabs electing to hold that second pick in Game 2. And you kind of highlighted not a whole lot of bans I'd want to trade out as far as giving up a Khepri, and the Titans have been very comfortable first picking this Khepri every single time they get the opportunity to do so.
And honestly, it just comes from a lot, again, the experience over the last few weeks. I think that they've been playing a lot where Khepri has been in the high present. I mean, go back to the Titans-Kings set in the Phase 2 playoffs, and it's like nobody had been talking about Khepri, I think, prior to that day, at least not as much. And then all of a sudden he's like first ban, first pick for a set, and it's like, oh, right. He's something that can be difficult to deal with. And I think that that's, again, a problem that the Scarabs are going to have to try and tackle here.
Change of pace for the Titans bans. They're going to go ahead and throw a little bit of respect towards Solar Troll. That Cerberus came up huge for them at that Gold Fury fight. He got, 3 people with the Sinjin Tournament, ended up pulling 2 of them in, getting a big kill and a big turnaround at that fight, kind of what set the Solar Scarabs back in pace. So they're going to make sure to ban that away in Game 2, along with the Erlong Shen and the Fenrir. Same bans on the side of the Solar Scarabs, the Ardio Hell Tiamat. And here we can expect the Khepri first pick from the Tartarus Titans, and so it will be one more time for Aurora.
But this is what I like to see. The Cerberus is taking place of what that Terra was, and this was really, really good pickup for him. Again, I had mentioned this. Bobby's win rate on Yamoja has not been very great, and the Scarabs as a whole this year haven't been able to do a ton with it. That last game was nuts. There were so many good Yamoja plays that it's tragic that no matter what in the win-loss column, it still gets ticked as a loss. But I think alongside this Terra, this is a good frontline. I mean, this is so much sustained, so much that you're going to be capable of in a team fight. I mean, Terra ult on its own is great at helping revitalize your team, but being able to bring a Yamoja's control alongside that opens up a wide conversation that I think is going to help rival this Khepri.
I'm looking at the Solar Scarabs here. They got Terra. That's a big one. But if they already have Khepri, is it necessary to really immediately pick the Yamoja afterward? I mean, it's not like teams are running Yamoja solo or Yamoja mid, so it seems maybe a little strange to grab Yamoja immediately after the Khepri's already locked in. Maybe you could have taken the Raijin away from Paul. We didn't even really talk much about Paul, even though he went, 5 or 6-1 right at the end of the game for it. But it's just insane to me that Paul is able to get a repeat performance on another guy. I mean, he went, what is that game was ours. We win that 9 times out of 10, easily taking this game too. We'll see if Inbound can live up to those words and take game number 2 from the Tartarus Titans. Maybe bring us to a game 3. That'd be an exciting way to cap off the weekend for our first phase or our first week of Phase 3. With Raijin Artemis locked in for the Tartarus Titans and a Yamoja Heimdall to round out the top 3 for the Solar Scarabs. Immediately, once again, the Titans are going for some more respect bans towards Baronic, Scylla, and Giannis. This time taking Scylla away, showing a little respect towards him.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the Scarabs pick up their mid here. I feel like Scream might want to wait one more pick before he locks in his jungle. Although this is where they locked in the Gilgamesh last time. Morgan Le Fay was the mid lane ban that the Titans had opted for. I think she's probably a little more easy to handle, although still a lot at that when in the right hands, and we have seen Baronic with some phenomenal performances for it. And this is something that it kind of goes back to what you had been saying, like Terras, Yamoja at the very top, like they just locked in Khepri. Did you have to double down to get these two? But I think it's one of those things that it's the benefit of you get 2 really high priority picks, and you don't have to show your hand too much, right? I think they're still in a very wide open conversation where they're going to be able to opt in for Scream's jungler a little later and to get him here for the Tsukiyomi, but then also kind of shake things up in mid and see what you're going up against, especially now because if you're Baronic, you're like, what jungler am I going to have to deal with? You want to wait a little bit.
Definitely want to wait some. Tsukiyomi, the 4th pick for the Solar Scarabs, coming right out of the ban phase. The Camazotz and a Sobek banned by them 2nd time around. At least some options over to the Tartarus Titans. And Gore, how could we just forget the fact that Odin has not been looked at by these 2 teams? He wasn't picked or banned, I believe, at all in game number 1. Nope. And in game number 2, he makes it all the way to a 4th pick for the Titans and Osiris to round out the draft. So now you know what jungler you're going up against. Now you know what the solo, you know what that front line looks like for the Tartarus Titans. If you're Baronic, what in the world mid lane are you looking to pick here?
Man, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things that, I was thinking, yeah, we'll see what jungler you're up against. I forgot about Osiris existing, period. If you get as good a start as Layers got in game number 1, I think it can be just as oppressive, if not more oppressive, having the Osiris run you down. I mean, I know things like Morgan Le Fay are still really interesting to potentially have. I think it's going to be fun to see what the swapped up are, and this is where things get a little more interesting because this is where Baranic's God Pool has to kind of showcase itself, right? The Scylla had some really good engagements, had some things that maybe didn't quite execute at the exact level you would like, but either way, at the end of the day, was still really solid. Giannis has been that go-to, but it's been banned away, and so it's that question of what else can you perform at that level on.
Solar Scarabs, and I do, by the way. Inbound, I mean, Gore said it off the first test that it doesn't really inspire confidence when he locks in the emoji, considering his history with this pick, but off of that last performance, I'm confident in his Yemoja now. That is an impressive play from him. I mean, consistently finding those Riptides, finding phenomenal ultimates, separating the fights, facilitating his team. It was a couple of stumbles early, but he cleaned it up quickly. Solar Scarabs this time around, though, holistically, have a high execution composition. Every single one of their gods is hard to perform on, and the team fight, barring SOT, is going to be difficult to perform on as well.
It's a much different look for Layers here this game. If when the Ratatosker was a thorn in the side of the Solar Scarabs, might feel good if you get first blood, and it's Paul who gets first blood on the Raijin. Layers just walks on in, and Scream, not where he should be in that moment, so Paul gets first blood in there. Yeah, but I'm thinking of like big, big
circle walls.
Yeah, circle walls, right.
Yeah, that's it. You got it.
Actually, if you had an Odin on your team, you could have double Odin walls.
He's in trouble.
We're getting theory crafting here. There's an ultimate, and it's connected onto Aurora. There's a Riptide right on the other end, but Aurora will walk on out. And look at that pressure. It's Aurora and Cyclone Spin just walking up. They force the ultimate out of Stewart, and Purple Buff ends up getting invaded as Paul and Layers make their way to left. Now Baronic spotted out, transforms into the Odin, will avoid the tether stun, but sends the stun right back towards Layers. A lot of damage connecting. Layers jumps on out as the Odin cage ends up going, or as A cage ends up going down. Stewart takes a lot of damage underneath the tier 1 tower, but there's not enough to end up getting the kill. Fireworks happening on left. Scream, maybe a chance to answer a kill here for the Solar Scarabs. There is a Scarabs Blessing, a great Riptide from inbound. Piercing Moonlight, is it in time? Oh, the Scarabs Blessing times out, and Scream gets the kill.
That was great play from inbound yet again, and he finds the pool. Cyclone's been in some trouble. Stun's no good, connects on the Layers.
Layers gets stunned underneath the tier 1 tower. These Riptides from inbound have just created so much chaos. Nearly does again. Caltrops down, but we're going tower diving. SOT rotates all the way over from solo. Cyclone Spin deleted by Scream. Layers does not have a lot of mana here, but it won't matter. Has just enough health and not enough cooldowns from the Solar Scarabs. A 2-kill swing on left.
They might look towards the Gold Fury. Stewart's a little bit low HP instead. Take this win and get out.
On this Khepri, but just raw chaos, I think was the word I previously used. Inbound has just been so on point. The Riptides, the River's Rebuke, they've all looked great as far as setting up fights, setting up kills for the rest of his team. Cyclone Spin just above half HP here. Purple Buff looked at. Scream is rotating in. Stewart connects with the ultimate. Aurora's going to crash back down, but Layers off to the right-hand side. Scarab's Blessing is here. If Aurora needs it, it's a River's Rebuke from inbound, and the Scarab's Blessing will send Aurora right back, and inbound gets the kill. A Riptide cuts off one of the escape paths. Layers will stick around here. Benji's rotating over from solo, but that is a simple collapse that works out for the Scarabs.
And they're going in again. Cyclone Spin man stepped up too far, and he falls down to Scream. Layers in some trouble.
Riptide sends Layers right back. Scream on the killing spree, but no piercing Moonlight
Benji
to further close that gap. Ring of Spears is down. That's going to keep SOT and Baronic right where they are for the time being, but no further follow-up. A Gold Fury looked at by the Scarabs, and the Solar Scarabs in Game 2 starting to drive things a little bit here. This Fury will go down quietly. Another kill on the Cyclone Spin. And the Scarabs find themselves just shy of 1,000 gold in the lead. Fury, we've now started to get closer to 1,000. We're over 1,000. Starting to make our way into 2,000. Baronic into the Chronos Pendant, Spear of Desolation, a little more flat pen on the other end. And I like this from Stewart. He got a bit of a lead. If that had connected, Cyclone Spin would have been in serious trouble. Trap plus the stun actually sends that damage right on back. But Stewart is able to get out. Scream in with the piercing Moonlight. This kill brought to you by Stewart, and Scream, the beneficiary.
Man, Cyclone Spin has got to be shaking his head there. That is so frustrating to deal with. He wins the 1v1 with no mana and less HP. Stewart just forces him to stick around, and well, when you stick around that long, Scream's going to show up and punish you for it. Clean play. The Solar Scarabs are playing cohesively as a unit.
Inbound, maybe a bit caught out here. Roar pulls him back in. Beads are there. Oh, but the root on the other end. That gives a kill. Right back to the Tartarus Titans. Benji has to drop the Ring of Spears in mid. He lost that trade pretty handily. SOT hasn't seen much action yet in this game. Just the 1 assist. 1 level down to Benji. But it's trade back from Inbound. Mentioned, you know, game 1, that happened once or twice. Can't let it happen too often. This one not super impactful, but does give the Titans a kill back right now. So he could group up over it, and that's what the Tartarus Titans are doing. Layers and Benji driving the front line here, but Scream is going to be around the corner. Don't think in time, and it is not in time. So the Tartarus Titans are able to swiftly take down the Pyromancer. There was a collapse there. If that had taken a little longer, Miff, might have been a fight on the other end. Paul ends up getting stunned in, and the follow-up stun from Inbound is there as well. Paul used the Aegis. That's why there's not much damage there. Now the beads get used as well. Tycho Drums will bring Scream low, but you have Inbound there for the sustain.
That Aegis timing was ridiculous. My man reacts to just the sound of the Morrigan channeling her 1 and says, nope, I don't want to play against it. Immediately Aegises and saves his own life. Crazy play, but being forced out nonetheless. Tier 1 tower should go the way of the Scarabs.
Yeah, it was a kill as far as defensive pressure goes for the Tartarus Titans. Paul is on the map, but he's back in base. Tier 1 down, and look at this.
Tier 2?
Could be a Tier 2 assault as well. Veronic hovering around to the left. Piercing Moonlight is up here for Scream. Every ultimate, in fact, ready to go for the Solar Scarabs. Paul does not have the Tycho Drums, but that is a lot of damage that is connected onto Scream. Piercing Moonlight sends him right on into the backline, and that's not where he wants to be. Cyclone Spin grabs the shutdown kill onto the Solar Scarabs jungler. Will they stick around for now? The answer is yes.
That's a great call from Scream. Once he's locked inside of that cage, he knows his life is over, so instead tries to deal as much damage as he can before he falls down, actually forcing Cyclone Spin back to
Apparently,
base.
of that period of growth. This is a long phase and a long road to the Smite World Championships, and the Solar Scarabs already seeing some payoff. Even if you lose this set 2-0, which of course you don't want to do, even if the Solar Scarabs lose this set 2-0,
nice.
they've played a set to be proud of against the defending Phase 2 champion, Tartarus Titans. So without the Pyromancer Myth, without the Primal Fury being there, goes back towards wave control and maybe a pick. Benji gets jumped on here by Scream, has the Ring of Spears, but SOT is awaiting on the other end. Benji inside of the cage will jump on out. Layers rounds the right side. The Riptide will force Benji off to the side. You're playing without your solo laner and a big ultimate. The Scarabs can push this advantage. Riptide sends Layers back into the jaws of death, but it's Benji who ends up going down.
Inbound holds on to the River's Rebuke for the entirety of that engagement, realizing that it is not needed to find the kill onto Benji. 5 members of the Solar Scarabs stacked up on the right-hand side. Finally decides to use that cooldown, does not get any value for it. But where is Cyclone Spin? He is on the left, finally starting to make his slow rotation, his slow-tation over to the Fire Giant and the Solar Scarabs. Well, they've started it.
Right, you're thinking this is a 5 versus 4, and then you see that it's 3, and it's because Cyclone Spin puts a little pressure on the Tier 2 on the left side of map. Solar Scarabs onto the Fire Giant. Still 25 seconds on the respawn from Benji, but he won't be lonely for long. Aurora might join him in the graveyard. SOT alone with 3 members of the Tartarus Titans. Scarabs blessings onto Aurora's got to be a kill for the Scarabs on the other end, and it's Veronic now on the board. Joins his solo laner back in the fountain. Veronic transforms into Terra, drops the ultimate, gets some damage onto Cyclone Spin, and the Solar Scarabs will turn their eyes back to the FG.
Cyclone Spin forced to use his beads there, doesn't want to deal with the transformation into Terra, now has
Veronic
to walk back up, shows himself on the ward momentarily, but it's Layers.
Piercing Moonlight, it's back, and it's Scream who goes in. Layers, Lord of the Afterlife on out. Fire Giant is on by the Solar Scarabs. It's just above half HP. Aurora 15 seconds away. Cyclone Spin's been spotted out. It's the Paul special, but it's being done to his teammate. Veronic gets the kill, gets the stun. All the damage onto Cyclone Spin. Benji, a Ring of Spears yet again onto Scream. And Benji's doing a lot of damage here. Paul is low as well. Has to use the Aegis. Thunder Crash on out, but Veronic wants the chase. Layers won't give him the opportunity. There's a stun on the other end, but Veronic's got no mana.
Aegis is forced out here. Doesn't have the beads available, but does not need it. Fire Giant does eventually get reset. Was dropped down to about 50%, but Stewart, you're alone, rides the Bifrost out by the skin of his teeth, saves his life. And now the Tartarus Titans, with a positioning advantage, are going to go ahead and pick up the Pyromancer. Solar Scarabs, privy to it though, can see everything that's happening. They finally, the Tartarus Titans that is, remove that sentry, that Tier 2 tower, just generating a little bit of threat. The Tartarus Titans, unconcerned. I think they're willing to let this Tier 2 go down. Solar Scarabs though, they make note and they pull the fire.
Scarabs onto the Fire Giant. Layers around the backside. Fire is down to half HP. Veronic into the stealth. Maybe searching for layers over around the wall. Won't find him though. Benji takes a little bit of damage here. Fire Giant's been reset slightly. Inbound still in the pit, taking a little bit of damage. So the Tartarus Titans not shying away from stepping up here, but the Solar Scarabs not shying away from sending some damage onto the Fire Giant. Still no rotation out miff to that tier 2 on left. That one taken pretty low, down to half HP, so the Scarabs are going to be able to build up a minion wave on that side. But this is far too risky to give up. If this Fire Giant goes down cleanly for the Scarabs, you're giving up a lot. Baronic still in stun.
Wow.
He's found layers. Piercing Moonlight from Scream is on to layers as well. It's a great cage, and it's a great ultimate from Aurora to save his jungler's life. Baronic is transformed. A double Piercing Moonlight will not finish off the kill, but Benji ends up going down on the right. Cyclone spins all alone. He's dueling out with Inbound and SOT. He's doing all right for himself. Walls go up, walls come together. Baronic on the killing spree. Tycho drops, no good. SOT able to dash away, and the Solar Scarabs find 2 kills for free.
Paul forced to use the beads defensively, tries to re-engage, finds the
play.
Raiju on to
Gotta
Stewart.
make a play. Paul with the Aegis keeps his health bar healthy for a little bit longer. He'll Thunder
He's done.
crash away. One more auto attack gets it instead. Stewart drops the hammer, killing spree for the Heimdall, and the Solar Scarabs bring this game right back.
You can't leave Cyclone Spin alone like that. Gets soloed out by SOT and Inbound, taking the 2 versus 1, and now 3 dead on the Tartarus Titans and the Fire Giant. Burning down quickly. Aurora and Layers are showing face.
Aurora could steal this away. Layers could steal this away. Instead, it's
reset.
dropped by the Solar Scarabs. They want these kills instead. It's another double Piercing Moonlight. This time Layers won't make it out. Baronic grabs the kill. Scream gets the other. It's a Tsukiyomi's doing all the work here, and the Solar Scarabs will pick up the Fire Giant to go.
Man, that is twice now inside of this team fight where Baronic says, yo, I want to be Tsukiyomi. Kage, Bunshin no Jutsu, my guy. There are 2 of them on the map. The Tartarus Titans do not know how to deal with it. Right side, tier 2, burning quick. Fire Giant on 5, and Layers dead for 35 seconds. This could be a Phoenix.
Scream has looked great in game number 2. 5-0-5, but give Baronic some due credit as well. He's been at the forefront of everything. But the man I just spoke about, Scream, the one who put Cyclone Spin down for the 6th time this game. Paul will send some damage from the Tycho drums on Stewart's way. The right side Phoenix goes down. SOT gets the root. But Paul will leap on out. Mid lane Phoenix not exposed. The Solar Scarabs looking for the end. It is 40 seconds on Cyclone Spin.
Slow.
8 seconds on Layers. Benji back into the fountain. Titan being looked at by the Solar Scarabs. Game 3 around the corner. Stuns connecting. Baronic is transformed. The Solar Scarabs have done it. On to game 3 we go.
We went to game 3. I can't think of a more accurate tweet that we've gotten from players. And opting into, what was it? This is a while ago, but Panda Cat had said, like, cowards don't trash talk after the set, do it before the set. I think during the set is just
I think
as
it's a
good
whole nother
there.
step up.
And and honestly, not even trash talk, just saying, hey, we should have won that game, and we're going to win the next one. They do a great job of doing it. A couple of moments where you get, I want to say, just some of the best Riptides that we've gotten to see, at least so far this phase. Really, really good plays from Inbound. Great ults as well to keep them locked in. And I have to give a lot of shout-outs to Scream, because there were several times where his ult was like perfectly timed, so just after the Scarab's blessing, he'd be able to find the kill. He got into the back line relatively easily and was always finding high priority targets. It really made it so the Scarabs were able to stand above and beyond.
I think gone are the days of talking about this lower win rate Umoja. We're in phase 3. We've only seen 2 games from it. It's sitting at a 50-50 win-loss rate. I think it's starting to talking about the new and improved Bobby Umoja coming out here in game number 2. 1-2-9 for the Slashline. Stewart with an undying game of his own, 3-0-8. Looking really strong with this Heimdall. And looking at the player damage, though, a lot of that going the way of Scream. 26,500 player damage for the jungler of the Scarabs.
And again, he did so much that game.
Start asking yourself, are there specific gods that we need to take away because X or Y player was performing so well on them? Umoja, I think, might even be a talking point here for the Tartarus Titans, because coming up into this phase, a lot of teams were just letting Inbound have Umoja because overall, based on the win rate, it hasn't had the strongest performance. I would say here in phase number 3 in this very first set with those 2 games, this is a god that probably should not end up in Inbound's hands any further.
Yeah, I think it's something you have to be worried about here if you are the Titans. And I think they have to start thinking about a lot of it. Like, the Terra was very, very prominent. They had banned Fenrir, Cerberus, Erlong Shin have been up there for their top 3 bans. And so it creates a big conversation. But that's actually the answer I was waiting for. The Scarabs Are you going to pick the Khepri or let the Titans have the Khepri? And I actually love this. So with Tiamat, Terra, admittedly some of the very top gods in the game just in general, Khepri seems to be right now depending on the team. Obviously the Titans really like it. We haven't seen the Scarabs get the opportunity to scoop it up. But I kind of like this even more so because if you think about it this way, let's say 3 great gods are left available. There's going to be way more than that, but let's just, for the experiment. You get 1 if you're the Scarabs, they get 2 if you're the Titans. You open up 5, they get 2 if they're the Titans. Yeah, 2 if you're the Scarabs now, or 2 if you're the Titans now, then 3 if you are the Scarabs. So I think they have a lot of power here in the first pick to jump around and let some things through, and then force the Titans to make the awkward decision of what returns to the Scarabs after their initial pick phase.
And with these first 5 bans, make that 6, we see a lot of the problems that arose in Game 2 for both of these teams, for all intents and purposes, removed from the map. The Khepri and the Odin taken away by the Solar Scarabs. The Titans take the Emoja, RTO, and Terra, but that leaves open for, I want to say, the first time so far this phase that Hell has made it to be able to be picked, and the Solar Scarabs have a high priority for it. They're going to grab it instantly. But the Cerberus Erlung Shen goes the way of the Titans.
Yeah, Hell not doing too well. She's been banned in a whole ton of games, but the only 2 that she's made it through, well, she lost. So she's got a little bit of work to do, I think, here for the Scarabs. And I will say a lot of the ones, looking at the draft, Hell, Cerberus was on the other side. She loses that game when it's the Kings versus Leviathans. Hell, Cerberus was the immediate answer Game 2 as well, that said. And so that does bode well for the Titans here. Cerberus is great at keeping her under control, but the bad side, or downside is, I should say, is that you look at the King set, Hell gets locked in, well, that's going to Variety. You know it's going to be solo lane. Cerberus is the direct lane matchup. I feel like this could very easily be a Baronic God and not even have to blink twice about it.
But that's one of the luxuries that some teams have compared to maybe even the Kings, where for the Kings, you probably don't really ever expect Hell to go mid. With the Solar Scarabs, you can expect this Hell to go in either mid or solo. So then that kind of opens the door and opens some questions up for the Titans is where do they prioritize their bans? Do they think that this is going to be mid lane Hell and we say, okay, well, we have our solo, maybe we ban some of their solo laners away and kind of force the Hell to be there, to maybe take some shots at mid lane and maybe try and force this Hell to go solo to face off against what would potentially be this Cerberus. The answer for the Tartarus Titans, however, is going to be some jungle presence. They're going to take Tsukuyomi and Fenrir off the board, and the Solar Scarabs, they're going to take a shot towards the mid lane, a shot at Paul specifically. They're going to take the way of the Morrigan. I would like to see the Raijin ban here as a combo with it, but instead, it's going to be a Cabrakan ban.
This isn't that surprising given what the Titans have been running a whole ton lately. With Cerberus, Erlong Shen, Cabrakan really does make that a very devastating front line, and that's more or less where we've seen the Titans go if the Khepri was not available for them. They did have, I think, what was it? They had a Odin support the other day that they were playing with, and it's just something that was solid for them, but I think the Cabrakan fits Aurora very well, and we've seen the walls. It also ends up fitting pretty well for Benji if they did decide for whatever reason to swap those around, which could be to help get the Cerberus in the mid lane for those mid 3v3s, help deal with this Hell. But it does also leave them now in this awkward spot where, what are you going to lock in? In my eyes, support here is probably going to be, like, or at least a Guardian, whether it's going solo lane or it's going to go into your duo lane is probably where you want to go and help alleviate some of that pressure. See what jungler your mid's going to have to go against.
Sylvanas is a 4th pick immediately out of the drafts for the Titans. The Solar Scarabs, they'll answer back with a Serket to grab for most, I can't even say most likely. There's still some flexibility with this god, and really both of these junglers love playing these more traditional assassins more often than not. So we could be seeing Serket jungle, could be seeing it in its more, I want to call it brought back, because for a while it was Serket jungle, and then it was Serket support pretty much entirely. And then Serket came back to jungle, and now we're seeing her a lot more support. But with this Thor hover here, I've got to imagine that this might be going Serket in the jungle, throw this Thor over towards SOT in the solo lane, and give that Sobek over to inbound.
I mean, it does. There's so much that they can shift around
They
here.
have so many options.
I like, as much as I like that, because look, let's face it, Zot has had some really, really good Thor games. I also do miss seeing Thor in the jungle, and that's just, that is a personal, like, my heart pangs for it. I really just want to have
J-Mac there. I figured it would be SOT on Thor solo. But I want to start there, Miff. I'm a big Thor lover, whether it's the Chris Hemsworth variety or the Smite variety, and Scream's got a playmaking jungler here in Game 3.
Yeah, Scream has got plenty of experience playing this god, man, and it is just a treat to see Thor back in the jungle. I mean, I wish maybe we get Gormizer on it. Look it up. When's the last time we saw Thor jungle? I want to say it's been like at least a year, maybe more than that. But
been a while.
He brings a lot of rotation power, great early game. The second he ticks over to level 5,
Did Sam
he's going to
play
be
Thor
a
this year?
massive threat. I don't believe so. I don't think so. He's been too busy messing around with like Mulan.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, sorry. That was horrible work by me. I cut you off there. You're thinking level 5.
Oh, yeah.
Similar to like a Ratatosk or something like that. But we've seen this a lot this set so far, Myth. The 2v2s in mid being potent. Won't be first blood this time around, but Layers definitely still putting some pressure onto the Solar Scarabs. The difference is in support here this game, Myth. Inbound on the Circuit after having some fantastic games on the Emoji. It has looked great today, inbound on Emoji. Now gets Circuit and it roars on the Sylvanas. Purple buff invade here. Layers takes a little bit of damage. Purple buff ends up getting dropped down here. And inbound will secure it and pick it on up. So Layers spends some time on left. Doesn't even end up securing the buff, but it's an engage now from inbound. Scream rotating over.
He's got wall.
From the mid lane, he's got the wall, he's got the stun, he's got the re-engage. Taunt is in, Scream,
Wow.
first blood, Solar Scarabs, strike paid out early.
Cyclone spin and Aurora now on the defensive. Scream, though, still here and healthy. Going to get that wall up very shortly. Aurora, if he is isolated by the wall, could fall down, but instead Scream says, look, I'm happy with first blood. I shut down Layers and finally pays one back, so instead just going to go ahead and strip away that buff yet again. Inbound successful in defending his own purple. Scream successful in stealing away the enemy
Talked
purple.
about it in game 2. It feels like the early pressure, I mean, this is kind of a non-statement because it's the jungler, and that's usually where a lot of early pressure builds out of, but the Solar Scarabs team, they've gotten lucky with Scream out of the jungle.
Aurora!
Engage from Stewart. He ticks over to level 5. Aurora sent into the sky. Inbound taking all the damage from Cyclone Spin. Aurora's going to be body blocked in time. A couple more autos is all that the Scarabs need, all that Stewart needs, but they won't be there. Inbound min-max is that moment about as good as you can. And we'll get out alive.
As it stands inside of the build, but the Solar Scarabs, doesn't it feel like they're playing with hot hands? Doesn't it feel like
Scream.
they're setting up?
Scream's in the air. Scream is setting up. Cyclone Spin being set up. Dunked on by Scream, and there is no chance of survival. No need to use the ultimate. Well, he ticked over to level 5. Couldn't do it anyway. Scream picks up the kill, and the Solar Scarabs jungler off to a 2-0 start. Tsukiyomi second. Looks like that might be an option here. Again, in game number 3, Tycho drums out from Paul. That'll deal a little bit of damage to inbound, but inbound has gone back in. Sent Paul right to the back, and it's because Scream is dunking on in. Aurora gets some tick damage onto inbound, and that'll answer back a kill for the Tartarus Titans. Scream hits the stun onto Paul, but Paul is able to shrug it off. Taunted back in by Layers, and the answer is swift from the Titans.
You gotta come correct. The Tartarus Titans making it hard
Stu
for
missed.
Stewart. Misses the ultimate, but should be able to walk out of this one. But it's gonna cost him his beads this time around. Dunk misses from Scream.
You miss a lot there.
Off the ultimate from inbound, immediately loses out on all that kill pressure. And I'd argue inbound plays that about as well as he can. He is communicating with his junglers, saying, I can find Paul with my ultimate. I'm gonna toss him towards the team before he's getting any sort of merits from this build.
Yep.
Aurora, I think should be playing very aggressively right now. Already has a 1-level lead over inbound, has some power inside of the build, ultimate available. Time to get in there.
Inbound looked at by Layers here, who does have the 9 turns blessing. But Layers sent running the other direction. I saw the flash on the ground, and Layers saw it on his screen. Taunt is through. Look at the wall.
Rest in peace.
It's keeping Layers right where he is, but he'll transform on out of the fight.
He's out.
And he will survive, but you are playing in a game of tens of health if you're Layers, but that'll open up the opportunity. What can the Solar Scarabs get here? Maybe a chance to invade. That will stall out the back from Layers here, but now inbound has got to worry about getting out alive. He'll dash through. Cyclone Spin rolls forward. Aurora's on the other side. Got to be a kill here, but the pull is not there, but Aurora gets the kill nonetheless. And an overextension. He saw red, inbound did. Unfortunately, now he's seeing gray.
So a lot of that team fight potential is going to be lost for a couple of moments here. That said, Aurora's lead, which was just 1 level, quickly expands itself to 2 and potentially a Gold Fury.
Tartarus Titans, they've grouped up around the Fury here. Stewart's going to round the corner. Slight steal potential out of the Heimdall, but I think thinks twice about it, and for good reason. Big lead now built up, or medium lead, maybe even a small lead. Small lead, I'll call it that, for the Tartarus Titans, where Layers got off to a great start. That semi-global pressure slowed down a little bit as we went into the mid-game. And Scream following a similar path there, where we've gotten some early kills on the board. We've reached that mid game. We slow down a bit. Cyclone Spin beneath his tier 1 tower. Stewart goes on in with the ultimate, snipes down, but the Bifrost out. Cyclone Spin plays that pretty well. Gets a lot of damage onto Inbound, a lot of damage onto Stewart. And everyone will survive on
that one. So he has got no safety. And take a peek at Layers. He's trying to move in.
Layers trying to engage, and he'll do you one better. He will engage. 9 turns Blessing will be beads down, but it won't matter. Layers grabs the kill, and Stewart now down for the first time this game. And that's so important. It gives Cyclone Spin a little breathing room. Stewart dead for 35 seconds. Cyclone Spin, as we stand now, 1 level behind.
Rage and his Aegis, so now has at least 1 defensive relic.
Scream, hello. What are we looking for here?
No world.
Right?
Yeah,
you wouldn't
can't
think.
do it.
Yeah, I'm heading on back to the green buff that hadn't even spawned up yet. Maybe if somebody's overextended, but nobody from the Tartarus Titans wasn't, so Oni Fury looked at. Inbound, are you considering a steal here? You don't have Blink. It's going to take something serious to get this one away, but it won't be a roll of the dice for Inbound. The Tartarus Titans able to get another Fury here in this game, slowly building that lead back up. Paul is going to make a big play, and it is very difficult to shut him down. If you want to beat this team, your mid laner's got to be able to stand up, put up some serious numbers, and Baronic has done so far this set. A little bit of damage finds its way to Aurora. And so, not surprising, Miff. I mean, with the pace of this game, that the Fury's down, the Pyromancer's down, looking for a little bit of poke here. But these are the types of moments. Inbound dashes away. Actually, it's pretty apt to what I was talking about. These are the types of moments where somebody on the Scarabs sometimes gets picked, but instead the Scarabs are the ones doing the picking onto Aurora. Scream dunks down onto no one. Off to the side of this fight, Stygian Torment baited out a bit by Benji. SOT taking a lot of damage from the Tycho Drums. Layers locked into the wall, but a 9 turns Blessing's massive. SOT has the detonate damage on the other side to give the Scarabs a kill.
And now they're healing back up, using that sustain from Hell to stick around inside of this engagement. They're going to keep on moving in. It's a 5 versus 3 in the tier 1.
Are we diving? Paul probably doesn't want to fight this one. SOT taking a little bit of damage here as well. Cyclone Spin rotating in from left. Inbound. Could Cyclone Spin hit some snipes here? That would be a long range on this ROM, but definitely possible. Might not need to. Stewart has the Aegis. He'll get out thanks to the Bifrost. Inbound has gone back in underneath the tier 1 tower. He'll dash away as well. Snipes from Cyclone Spin. They hit an Inbound in the dirt.
Stewart looking a little bit nervous, steps up too far, trying to finish off that tower, and instead baits his team into a poor position.
It's a pluck onto Benji, followed up by the stun from Scream. Solar Scarabs has been half health for the last 30 seconds or so. Uses the Thorns here. The tier 1 tower has ended up going down. And it looked like the Scarabs were going to get the tier 1 tower. Instead, the Titans flip the script, get a kill onto Inbound, and a tower of their own.
It's all because Stewart just stays a little bit too far forward. Dunk split from Scream finds 1, but those are the 2 Guardians, the tanky boys of the Tartarus Titans. No way Scream sticks around inside of that engagement, but it may be Cyclone Spin.
These teams refuse to not fight. Aegis from Cyclone Spin is out, and everyone's piling on. And it's hard as ROM to get out of that. Tycho Drums taunts Scream back in once more. But the Aegis was there on the other side, so it looks like if you send someone forward, I was going to say that you're going to get this tier 1 tower anyway, but instead, what a call from the Scarabs. They might be thinking about Fire Giant, Miff, and the Scarabs are thinking about Fire Giant. It's 35 seconds on Cyclone Spin. Baronic and Inbound combine for some damage onto Layers, who will turtle form his way on away. But Inbound jumps up and over, and the Titans lose their jungler.
Layers dead for 45. Cyclone still has to spend another 20 on the grayscale. Best of luck to the Titans on the defense.
Paul's the one who's got the damage here, but he does not have Tycho Drums. That is going to limit the range at which he can engage. Inbound might just
50%.
throw his life away. Fire Giant melting as we speak. Solo or Troll is low. Stun from Scream onto Benji, onto Aurora. Fire Giant's been dropped. And now the onslaught begins from the Solar Scarabs. It's massive from Aurora, but you don't have the damage. Up to the sky, go Scream. Benji could be the target here. And it is. Benji will leap away. A 1-for-1 trade by the end of it there as SOT falls, but Aurora does as well.
Oh, dashes in aggressively with a thunderclap. Tycho Drums is up. He's chasing.
Oh, is he going to get Stewart here? Yes, he will.
Wow.
Makes the play. It was only a matter of time. And
he's still going.
Thunder crashes in. Some tick damage.
Paul!
And Paul, don't do it to him, baby. Give him the last auto attack. Get the double. Paul, are you kidding me? Titans fight back.
Dave, you willed it into existence. You said Paul at some point is going to come up in a big way for his team, and he does it here. That turns around yet again. The Solar Scarabs aggressive the tier 1 tower in mid, get crushed, lose theirs. The Solar Scarabs get aggressive on the Fire Giant, get crushed and lose it as well.
Fire Giant now low. This is a good target for the Tartarus Titans. Inbound is here, but he's been spotted out by Paul. Could be a great kill opportunity, but Paul Thunder crashes right back in. Taunt from Layers seals the fate of Inbound, who will leap away, but they pile on. Benji gets this one, and the Fire Giant saga comes to a close with the Titans getting it on all 5. Inbound goes down, 30 seconds left, and who else but Paul? Who else's name do you want on your team when it matters most?
Man, just goes in all on his own, finds the Tycho over the wall, completely blind, by the way, puts Stewart down, and then re-aggresses. Scream steps up to try and find the wall to separate and peel out for Stewart, but too little, too late. Raiju slow, line up the auto, and that's a double kill for the mid laner on the side of the Tartarus Titans.
That's a good thing Paul doesn't play a Hunter. A couple of those autos a bit short, but the last one hits.
He's starting to rotate over as well, but instead, it is going to be a reset back to neutral. It is going to be a reset back to this Primal Fury. Inbound finds Layers, but he's got no help.
Inbound jumps back in. Well, you got the Oracles thanks to Stewart on left. So, 3 members of the Tartarus Titans, now 2 are on this Fury. Benji gets dunked on, taunted in by Inbound. No miscommunication that time, but a Stygian Torment sends SOT right under the Tier 1 tower. I'm not sure that's where he wanted his pluck to go. He took a few more tower shots and missed onto Benji. Can the backs get stopped? Inbound has to cancel his back, sends Layers off to the side with his taunt. Stewart is in the fight as well. Bifrost will send him off to the side. Paul with the Tycho drums melts the health bar of SOT, and SOT will be the sacrifice here on right.
SOT does fall to the Raiju. Paul picking up another one and notching the 3rd on his belt. Inbound caught out by Aurora here, but the Solar Scarabs, just by showing presence on the right-hand side of the map, have slowed down this Fire Giant power play from the Tartarus Titans. Still, 3 towers standing, and finally, the Tartarus Titans grouping up on a tower.
Aurora will spread out some healing here. The Solar Scarabs are going to have to get it done underneath their Phoenixes. The Phoenixes are being looked at. Look at this, Veronic and Inbound just now channeling their back. It's a slow answer on the Phoenix defense. You're without SOT for 25 seconds. Maybe there's no chance to defend the Phoenix. If you lose a fight there handily, if you're the Scarabs, you end up losing the game, but is there a chance for a pick onto Benji? The wall sure says yes, but the leap out sure says no. Stewart in a position to do some big damage. Scream, no good on the dunk in. Cyclone Spin, plenty good with the damage onto Inbound. Scream, left alone, double stun, that's great, but what can you get on the other side? Up in the sky is Cyclone Spin. 1, 2 is Aegis out. Scream,
Tycho.
The Tycho drums. Paul is putting the team on his back here. The Tartarus Titans storming into the Titan room.
Solar Scarabs on the defense, 3 versus 5. No ultimates available to the Titans, but it doesn't matter.
You got a front line, you got both your carries. That's what the Solar Scarabs want, but you need a big
50%.
play. You need someone to go big. SOT gets the first, but the Titans have got the damage, and they're putting it on to the Titan themselves. Cyclone Spin blocked on out, but it doesn't matter. The kill connects onto Stewart anyway. The Titans still whittling down, and the Titans have got plenty of manpower to get it done. Game number 3 goes to the Titans.
In quick 24-minute fashion, the Tartarus Titans
kills, a lot of space created for him, and does a remarkable job of chasing people down. I just think this was a fun draft to watch the Titans play as a whole from top to bottom. A really, really solid frontline built for them. I mean, we had great performance from Benji on the Cerberus with really good pull and setup coming down from Aurora. I think we've done enough talking about Layers on Erlong Shin that it kind of speaks for itself, so I can glance over that and instead look at Paul, who had a lot of really, really insane moments towards the end of this. Because, I mean, even looking at these highlights, when you look at them in these snippets, we're 14 minutes in, everything's still relatively even here. Cyclone had some really solid snipes, even going towards the very, very end there under the Titan room. But I do think it's that fight around the Fire Giant that really helped break the Titans forward, and it went from, I think it was like 6 and 6 to kills, maybe it was 6 to 8, and then just spiraled immediately in their favor.
I mean, at this point, I think Aggro is right. I'm going to have to give him a shout here. He said, you can ban the Tiamat, sure. Why not? But then what other poison are you going to let Paul just carry this team with? What other poison are you going to give to this man? Like, you go ahead and pick your own death there. At this point, I think it's just safe to say maybe we just ban Paul from the league itself. That might be the only way to shut down this mid.
Man, if you could ban players, that changes the dynamic so much.
What if you, sacrifice all 5 of your bans just to tell them they have to play with a sub for 1 player instead? That might be the only way that you can inevitably shut this player down. But Paul, if you look at player damage, it's not even close. 7,000 was the next person in line behind Paul in damage. And that was SOT from the
Short
Scarabs.
weekend,
But you couldn't fool me with it. The games have been action-packed nonstop throughout. We started the week with the Jade Dragons and the Valhalla Valkyries, the Bolts and the Warriors on our Friday match. We had Camelot Kings and Leviathans, Oni Warriors, and the Titans played earlier on, and then the Leviathans Valkyries was today, and now our in-studio matchup has just recently concluded with the Tartarus Titans taking down their opposition of the Solar Scarabs. Looking at the standings, we get a little bit more clear cut here. Now we actually do have a 1st through 8th and not a whole lot of the 1-1, 4-4-4, 5-6. We don't have all of that this time around. It's a very solid 1 through 8 for our first week. We'll be facing off here on the battleground on our Friday sets. It's the Camelot Kings and the Solar Scarabs, another big match the Scarabs are going to have immediately out the gate. And then the Olympus Bolts and the Jade Dragons for our second match Friday. Camelot Kings and Tartarus Titans, that's going to be good. Jade Dragons and Lance Leviathans, that's going to be a good match. We are filled to the brim with great matches for our first 2 days. Even the Olympus Bolts Valkyrie should be fun.